podcasts looking at some of the skeletal system, and right now you're looking at a humerus. Now that they have it on a black background, it's much easier to see these bones and its features. Note here you're looking at its anterior surface of humerus, and we're looking here at the distal end, here at the proximal end. Remind ourselves, here we are medial, here we are lateral. So this means this is a right arm. So make sure we have ourselves associated. You may be looking at a left arm in your models or your images in your textbook. We're going to start ourselves here on the proximal end, talk about some of the structures you can see here. And the first one we want to talk about is this smooth surface here on the top that we can see a little bit better if I rotate it here, is the head of the humerus. And this is where it articulates with the scapula at the glenoid fossa. Continuing on from the head, you will note a very definitive crack or crevice here. This is your anatomical neck. Surgical neck would be wrapping around here if you would have noted a very general structure there. If you were to take a rubber band and wrap it around there, how it would fit tied to that would be the surgical neck. Two more structures we want to talk about found here. First one here is the greater tubercle, of which you can see it a little bit better if we look at it like this, or if we rotate him around, you can see it more in profile here, the greater tubercle. To continue around a little bit more, you can see the lesser tubercle, rotated a little bit more to the lateral side, and you can see lesser tubercle here. And between the greater and lesser tubercle lies the intertubercular groove. So greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, intertubercular groove. Continue down to the distal end along this structure called the shaft, and you will hit this bump where it has a rough texture to it. This is the deltoid tuberosity. So this is a fairly evident structure. This is for the insertion of the deltoid muscle. You will note on the tubercles in the proximal arm, this is for the insertion of the muscles of the rotator cuff, and again the deltoid tuberosity for the insertion of the deltoid muscle. Let's move down to the distal end and talk about some of these structures. We're going to start here on the medial surface and work our way lateral, talk about each structure in a little sequence. The first thing we want to talk about here is your medial epicondyle. Then we reach this condyle, which will articulate with the trochlear notch of the ulna. This is your trochlear. Above trochlear, you will find the very small coronoid fossa. Here, you will see the condyle referred to as the capitulum. Move here, you will see the epicondyle, the lateral epicondyle here. Also note above capitulum is the radial fossa here. Let's look posterior on this bone. As we look at its posterior surface, you will note here on the distal end, there's only one structure left to talk about, and this is the olecranon fossa. The olecranon fossa is where the olecranon process of the ulna will come in and articulate. Everything else you've already seen running up from the distal end all the way to the proximal end, reminding ourselves here again of medial, and you know all those structures. So this is the humerus, and I hope this makes it much easier to see those structures, and I hope this helps you. Please check your structure sheet for anything that you may have missed, and always ask your lab instructors if you are missing anything on these sheets. So that concludes the podcast on the humerus.